Hey everyone, welcome to Spiritual Journey. My name is Colleen Jorgensen. Today we're going to talk about the summer solstice, which is set to arrive tomorrow. I have set the chart for Ottawa. So to get a handle on how this is going to influence the country of Canada, which would be similar in many respects to the United States, because they are also on an Eastern Standard Time. And so the charts are going to be very familiar, maybe a 2-3 degree difference between the outer band of the zodiac. So this arrives on June 20th at 10:43 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That would be the same as Washington, D.C. It happens at 8:43 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, Central Standard Time, and 7:43 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So all of those, all that energy is going to vary depending on which location you're in, and it is going to move the energies depending where you are. However, I set it here for Ottawa because I kind of want to know what is going to play out for the people of Canada and how the summer months are going to unfold for us. So right off the bat with this chart, and you can bring it up June 20th if you're looking for it at 10:43 p.m. Ottawa, Canada. So right off the bat, we have Aquarius is rising. So that's a very unusual sign. It is linked into humanity and environmental concerns, large groups of people, gatherings, large gatherings, which we're all accustomed to in the summer months. And so it really highlights Uranus and futuristic concerns, futuristic plans that are about to unfold. And what is interesting about this Aquarius is Pluto is sitting angled right very close within 3 degrees, less than 3 degrees of the ascendant. And whenever a mighty planet like Pluto is sitting angled like that, is it very prominent and it expresses itself quite significantly. So we know that there's going to be some extremes during the summer months. There's a lot of intensity that's going to begin to manifest within the landscape and maybe with federal plans. And things begin to be exposed and perhaps secrets begin to bubble to the top. It kind of spells a bit of criminality or an increase of criminality throughout the summer season, or an increase in crime. So that could be petty crime like theft, stealing a bubble gum. But increased crime really comes when the humanity is under a lot of pressure. So some of those things can be exposed, underhanded dealings. And there's kind of a sense that we need to gain control. We need to get things under control, and we need to obtain our own power and power stability. So Aquarius is a very sort of distant sign. It is very friendly, but yet it's really reserved in many respects and pulls back. Like you're going to go to a group function, you want to enjoy the function and the activities going on, but you don't necessarily want to get buddy with a bunch of people. It's just friendly exchange. It's also a global phenomenon. Because Aquarius rules all of humanity. And just like the internet, which Aquarius rules, came on board, we were all kind of linked together through this web of connection. So that is still going on. Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, so it takes precedence and it really begins to take control of what Pluto is doing. And Uranus is not necessarily a quiet bedfellow. He likes to kick up his heels. He's rebellious. He's futuristic thinking. He's edgy. And he's extremely unpredictable. So this is sure to be a summer of unpredictability, sudden changes arising, and people shifting into different directions. Uranus is at 29 degrees of Taurus, which is an anaretic degree, which is on the verge of something different, anxious to get out of Taurus. Uranus doesn't like Taurus, it's way too heavy energy. And Taurus rules the economics of the country, along with the financial stability. Are we secure? Do we have everything we need? Are we safe? Do we have shelter? Do we have enough funds to feed ourselves? And at 29 degrees, this really kind of plays into that Pluto angled, and it really says things are kind of uncertain, a little out of control, a little bit hectic, and is kind of a frenzied pace that's going to begin to emerge. So some of the things that this highlights is electricity, the electrical grid, but it also promotes technologies, the internet, aviation, sciences, space exploration, and all of these seem to be a little more prominent. But 29 degrees is it's on and then it's off. And we can really see this volatility of uncertainty with that 29 degrees. And it produces chaotic energy. And then we've got Uranus, which is already electrified. And then we have Pluto angled. So there's a lot of sudden events transpiring and taking hold, which could be rebellious because we glean new information or secrets that are coming to the surface. But we could also be encountering sudden storms, earthquakes, and disruptions from that energy. A lapse in the electrical grid or the internet, or something that causes disruptions in those things. But yes, we could see protests, riots, this rebellious energy, which we're already seeing in many parts of the world. And so we could really see a continuation of this energy. Uranus, however, is in a really pleasant connection with Pluto, almost like it's harnessing the change or instrumental in bringing about the change by exposing something that needs to be shared with everybody. So many of these disruptive energies can actually lead to positive changes, along with the rebellious energy and this sort of fight to free something and to get away or release ourselves from something that is holding us hostage in some way. This also can cause debt to occur, or there's issues of debt deficiencies, and an increase in bankruptcies, perhaps. These really spells into the Canadian finances as a whole, that we need to watch that we're not over spending without consideration of where it's coming from. The banking industry definitely is highlighted here as well because of 29 degrees of Uranus. So Pluto in Aquarius on the ascendant is kind of ominous. And it's warning of some sort of perhaps a life-threatening issue that needs to be addressed. Who is in control? Who is in power? And are they threatening somehow the stability of humanity? So this could be technological, it could be chemical, it could be destructive, because both Uranus, even though they're in a trine 120 degrees apart, they both rule the chemicals that make bombs, nuclear bombs, atomic bombs, and they're very explosive energy. So there's a compatibility here that two things come together that can have an impact both positively and negatively. They're explosive in their nature, and they really sort of sink us down into our first soul energy, and that is for survival. And of course, that is going on in some parts of the world in the human energies. So threats seem possible. They seem really real. There could be some underhandedness, some deceptive energy that's going on. And like we don't know what's coming next. That could affect large swaths of people. So if that is storm activity, electrical, lightning, severe weather patterns, this would definitely affect large swaths of people. There is like power struggles present here, and someone who is trying to control other people. You know, Venus is ruling Uranus, and she's in her early stages of Taurus. And so she's comfortable. She is pretty comfortable in how she's handling things. And this would also play into how Uranus is acting at 29 degrees. So he's pretty confident. He's pretty comfortable with whatever shakeups are about to unfold. So there is a sense of calm, and maybe this is because we're not aware of what is about to transpire, or we just feel safe and secure. There is a need for resources, and this plays into minerals and mining as well, because Pluto rules that. And there's this shelter. Assistance seems readily available, and funding seems readily available if we need it. The moon also is in her glory in the early 00 degrees of Taurus. She loves Taurus. And this kind of also gives that sense of safety, a feeling of being secure, that things are going well, that things are pretty optimistic, and that we're pretty stable here in Canada. And so we are more than willing to assist other people who are struggling. It's a very supportive and nurturing guidance and energy that could be coming out of the summer months with Canada and other countries. You know, food supply and financial stability, along with housing and shelter, seems to be top of mind. So crops out there, because we have Taurus, energy which rules agriculture. However, the moon in its comfortability is square to Pluto, and this kind of gives this sense of resistance against somebody who is attempting to control things. And this could be challenging with those things like crops, the land, um, pestilence, plagues, vermin, contamination of some sort, or just storms sweeping through and affecting the food supply or the agricultural base, which also indicates that that population would be looking for funding, which is Pluto. And the moon is the population. So the population is really affected by whatever is happening sort of globally with Aquarius. But the moon here in Taurus seems like she has the security and the safety, but does she? So we have to look to the outside of Canada to kind of figure out what is happening and how that is going to affect the population in Canada. So it's a disruptive energy that is going to produce some really strong emotional responses that could elicit this polarization of differing viewpoints that can get quite extreme. And we really seen that with COVID. So this also can bring about volcanic activity, a lot of volcanic, and Mother Earth Gaia is really like shaking things up a bit. The midpoint of this activity between Uranus and Pluto, of course, is the newly combination of Saturn and Neptune, newly in the sign of Aries, which is really let's go energy. And it produces this sense of manifestation of your dreams, of course, and controlled behavior in some sense, or control the delusionment, or control the dream to continue on or to continue to manifest. Yet it's kind of magical on a personal level, individual level. Like we can really tap into karmic energy. We can really start to manifest our own dreams. And we can really produce here as long as we lay a solid groundwork for that to take effect. Mars is ruling Saturn and Neptune. And we must be cautious with Neptune here because we know that Neptune in the early degrees of Aries produced the Civil War in the United States. And there's also a lot of connection with Pluto and Aquarius to the American Revolution. And already we have some rebellious that the United States doesn't want to go back to the rulership of a king, which was what prompted it to separate with the American Revolution and being unfair, that somehow the world was treating them unfairly and they wanted to step out and become their own country. Mars in Virgo is particular, it's exact, it's a perfectionist. And so a lot of times when you have Mars in Virgo, you kind of get this need to be productive and work hard, but you could scrap it all and start over again because it isn't just right. So the details of events that are transpiring are really important. And Mars is ruling this Saturn-Neptune combination, which is at the midpoint of this Pluto-Uranus trine. So it's really important what Mars is doing. This these this demands something. Mars demands exaction. It demands to be to have a response, a verbal response. And it can cause disagreements, arguments, and a lot of anxiety if you're not on point and you don't make your point. Because Virgo is a mutable sign, so it can change its mind. Oh, I was going to go here and now I'm not. I'm going to go over there. Or I see you at the other side of the coin now. So it can cause this like panicked energy that things aren't getting done fast enough. We're not playing our part. We're not doing what we're supposed to do. And this is going to really affect the workforce in Canada, and especially with a career of service. So that would be the military, the police, the healthcare system with nurses and doctors. And you get this real like urge to produce something. And Mars actually is functioning actually quite well here. It is at the midpoint of a yacht. So there is some action unfolding here, which is vitally important to the direction of what is going to transpire in the future. It's sextiling Vesta, so it is continuing on. It's not going to stop whatever it had begun. And it's sextiling this beautiful Sun Jupiter combination. So there is a lot of cooperation, I guess. And Mars here is in the seventh house in this chart, which means it's allies, the people who are supporting us and supporting the direction that we aim to go for the future, and how that's going to unfold and how we're going to implement that and what that looks like, and how much is it going to be worth our effort to do. So there's a lot of work ahead for the Canadian government and its allies that are very positive, and it spells opportunities. So Canada is open for business and open to connect with our allies and work together with them in a very detailed program or a very detailed outline of what they want accomplished. Pluto is also very like aggressive energy because the moon is also squaring the ascendant. So we have this public demonstrations, aggressive, demanding exposure. And this could bring lawsuits, bitter enemies. We could see this increase in criminal behavior, and it's kind of controlling and manipulative. As I said, Mars is in a good position. It's in a good position with our allies to work to formulate some sort of plan. And it's sextiling this beautiful combination between the Sun and Jupiter, which is very prominent in the early degrees of Cancer. And it's usually indicative of leaders who are wanting to expand. It's lucky. It's very pleasant. It's exciting in many ways. And so I think that connection with our allies is going to be significant. It also speaks to immigration, foreign policy, diplomacy, because the Sun Jupiter is going to land in the ninth house of the Canadian chart, and it's very close to the moon here at 6 degrees of Cancer in the Canadian chart. So Canada could sort of rise up as some sort of prominent leader that has some really good ideas and is formulating some really good plans for the future. And there's increased influences that are going on here, and maybe a little more spending in things like the housing industry. It could jack up inflation in those areas or the cost of housing. There's a real sense of wanting to accomplish goals and aims, and it's really positive, and optimistic. And it's really gaining some control. We're really gaining some control over our own destiny. The moon is sextiling, and this brings opportunities because the moon is sextile to the Sun Jupiter combination. So this brings that sense with the moon in Taurus that there is opportunities there, and that could come out of a leader or leadership position or some foreign intervention or foreign influence. Goals that are unattainable, because the moon is square to Pluto, could just be because there's too much restriction, there's too much control going on. And it seems rather confusing and bizarre, and obstacles being put in our paths, and we're held back somehow by this. So it's there, like we are there, like we can see the future, but we just are having trouble to get there, and it's kind of weird in some sense, a little bit deceptive, and we need to be cautious of that. So if you're planning something for the future this summer and you got a great idea, you could have to go through a lot of red tape to manifest that. There is problems here. I foresee problems with the labor force, strikes, problems with unions, something to do with the workforce. And it's connected to the ninth house. So foreign interests or foreign influences create this challenging environment, that something isn't fair, like something needs to be worked out so everybody is treated equally. The health of the nation is also significant here. There's international exuberance. There's a lot of just diplomacy. There's a lot of like, let's get out there and start these big projects. Let's get the funding rolling. Let's move ahead with many of these things. And everybody seems to be on board, but for some reason, we encounter these blockages or peculiar circumstances that it just can't get done. We also have some concerns here with the workforce, not just with unfairness or foreign influence, but also with AI and perhaps new technologies that are coming on board. So we could really see some shifts that are happening with that as well. So all in all, I think it's kind of a pretty good summer. I think we're ready for some changes to manifest. We're ready to get rid of some of the old and step into something different and something new, and move into the future. So this Sun combining with Jupiter really comes into play early in the summer months, between June 19th and the 26th. And plans and optimism and everything starts to move into motion. Yet they're squared to Saturn and Neptune. And this is where we get that, oh, we're ready to move ahead, but we've got these blockages, or we have these weird circumstances to contend with. And this could be stormy weather, floods, heavy rains, challenges, things that are unforeseen. And so by the time we get to July 7th, the Uranus is going to move into Gemini, and I hope to talk a lot more about that because in the Canadian chart, that's going to land in the eighth house of investments in technologies, AI, space exploration, the sciences, electrical advancements or hydroelectrical advancements or influences there along with aviation, computers, because we are kind of running behind now with some computer technology in some of the businesses. There's unexpected shifts happening with investments, and this really plays into the taxation system. We could see changes in Canada related to the taxation system, insurances, stocks and bonds, and somewhat into the banking system because Uranus is not quite finished with Taurus just quite yet. Bitcoin could be significant here as we shift our focus into something completely different. Social media, advertising, transportation. That would be transportation in related to railway services, public transportation, how we get around, how we transport goods and services. And the trade negotiations start to come into play at this time. And it produces some really unusual things. July 13th to the 18th, we have Mercury stationing retrograde, and this is the time always for us to stop and backtrack and have a look at how far we've come so far. It's interesting because Mercury is retrograding in Leo, the same as Mars did, in its retrograde station through Cancer and Leo, except for Mercury is going to retrograde at midpoint of Leo, and it's going to be retrograde at 15 degrees of Leo. So if you're a Leo individual in around that time to review things. And it's going to backtrack all the way. It's not going to come out of Leo, that fire sign, all the way back till 4 degrees of Leo on the 11th of August. That is kind of good because it is going to come into connection with that Saturn-Neptune thing, and it's going to play out rather positively. And this happens from mid-July, all the way till the 11th of August. By the time we hit the end of July, of course, we're moving into Leo, and the sun moves into Leo, and it's going to trine that combination of Saturn and Neptune. And that would be a good time to, if you have all your plans ready, to embark on something and move forward with something. We're in the long days of summer by this juncture, and we're not as comfortable as maybe we were at the beginning because Venus will square Mars briefly at this time. By the end of July, heading into August, and we're still in summer, Venus moves into Cancer, and there's this need to connect, family reunions, weddings, getting together with your tribe, and just feeling like you need some love. However, there could be some issues brewing here because Venus is going to square Saturn and Neptune, and this could bring about some uncomfortability and perhaps some distress. And this taps into the ninth house of lawsuits, the legal system, the Supreme Court in the Canadian chart, along with immigration, university, and educations. So we could see some shifts happening here. By the time we get to the middle of August, we have Mars moving into Libra, and forget it. Like none of us really know what we really want. We're a little argumentative, but yet we're innovative. However, those crazy, unusual ideas are going to be met with a lot of resistance as Mars moves through and opposes. So, all you cardinal signs out there, whether you're Aries, Cancer, Libra in the early degrees, or Capricorn, you're going to kind of feel like you're under pressure because of these squares, and you have some issues going on that you have to deal with them and do something. Or if you have any planets at 0 degrees of any of the cardinal signs, there's big shifts that are happening here. By the end of the month, August 22nd, the sun is going to move into Virgo, and we get Jupiter at the midpoint because Jupiter is now in Cancer, and at the midpoint between the Sun and Uranus, and this is a semi-square. So you got to watch that you don't overestimate your capabilities and what you can do. It's really pleasant, I find, by the time you get to the end of August. Things seem to smooth out as we head towards the fall season. And we start, of course, thinking about getting back to work. The Sun and Mercury both move into Virgo, and Mars moves into that pleasant sign of Scorpio, where he's got a little more control over what's happening. And you got to really track a Mars's journey because he is ruling this Saturn-Neptune combination, which of course is war and disagreements. Mars is war and disagreements, and he wants to push forward. So, and then you have the sun on the 21st of September as we head into the fall, opposing the Saturn and Neptune combination. So if you want to know more about Saturn and Neptune, just go down a little ways in the videos and you're going to find me talking about the combination of Saturn and Neptune, but also individually how Saturn is reacting in Aries and how Neptune is reacting in Aries. Overall, we have a lot of changes happening in the summer months. So you got to kind of hang on to your seat to be prepared for the unexpected. But in the long run, I think it's going to be beneficial. We have a lot of optimism here, overestimation, over exaggeration, maybe. But we're really actually being quite productive with Mars in the sign of Virgo. And we're feeling comfortable, like we're not strained unless a sudden storm comes along. But the key here is if you are strained in any way, you need to make changes. You need to change how you live, how you view the world, your perception on things. And if you begin to change things, you're going to find that you're going to get along really quite well sailing through this beautiful hot season of summer. So I'm going to leave you with that. If you have any questions or if you'd like a personal reading, please get in touch with me at 306-781-1300 or email me at accsj@live.ca, and we'll find out where you're heading through the summer months and what changes are coming to you personally. So give me a shout when you got a minute. I look forward to connecting with you over Zoom, the telephone, some other platform. Have a blast. Bye-bye.